So, okay, common ancestry. When we talk about common ancestry, typically I'm talking about the fact that all of us came from ancestral organisms. Uh, More specifically, we all came from a single or very small number of ancestral, protocells. But let's go ahead and talk about how we know that we have a lot of things in common um, with cells like this, with some of those protocells. How do we know those evolved into the cells we have today? Well, we can look at all sorts of different kinds of organisms. I'd like you to take a look. I have some images up here right now of cells, which I'm sure you've heard of before, or I'm sure you've heard that word before. And I want you to tell me which of these cells, right? I'll number them. Let's see. One, two, let's see. Three, four, and five. Which of these cells are from humans? I'd like you to take a minute, maybe pause the video, and tell me which of these cells you think are from humans. Okay, now that you're back, let's go ahead and talk about which of these cells are from humans. If you look at number 3 here, this is a human cell. These are cheek cells. You can actually do this. Like we can do this in class if you see me after school or something. You can look at your own cheek cells, right? Um, it's pretty interesting, actually. Now, what about number 4? What is number 4? 4 is also human cell. This is a phagocyte. This is a cell that kind of operates an immune defense, eats other cells. It's in the process right now of consuming something. These are phagocytes. You'll find these in human tissue. Okay, number 5. This is also human tissue over here. This is actually skin tissue. All of these dark little circles are nuclei. All of these circles in here. This is it's actually esophageal or skin tissue. Looks like this is stratified squamous tissue. But all 3, 4, and 5, these are human cells. 1 and 2. 1 is an amoeba. 1 is an amoeba. 2 over here. This is a paramecium. Paramecium. You can actually find these in pond water. If you go out to a pond and get some water and put it in a slide and put it under the microscope, you can see these little guys swimming around. It's actually pretty interesting. You might find some amoebas as well. Amoebas operate by moving around with these little pseudopoda, these little false feet they have, and these are ciliated organisms. The paramecium, they have these little cilia, these hairs, kind of help them swim around movement-wise. But how do we know that these are very similar to us? Well, they have these things. All of these cells, 1 through 5, are all eukaryotes. This is something I'm sure you remember from biology, but eukaryotes all have membrane-bound organelles. Membrane-bound organelles, right? You can see actually these dark circles right here. These are nuclei. Nuclei, or the nucleus of these cells. And you can see them in a lot of these cells. These are actually multi-lobed nuclei in here, but there's a nucleus. Of course, there's many cells in here with nuclei. Right? You can see the nucleus over here in this amoeba right here. And you can see a large nucleus over here. Paramecium. So, membrane-bound organelles. In other words, you have this organizing structure. You have a cell membrane on the outside right here, right? And you have these organelles on the inside, some of which you've probably heard of already, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, these types of things. We'll get into more detail on this later on in the course, but for now, I want you to notice that there's a large degree of similarity between these different organisms. Another thing I'd like you to know, and you can see this here, you have paramecium. This is a picture of paramecium. It has some very unique organelles in it. Food vacuoles, specific food vacuoles. It actually even has an anal pore down here. You can see where it ejects kind of waste. And you have something similar. You have a similar anatomy. If you look at the cheek cells, you can see the nucleus. You can see a bunch of mitochondria sprinkled about, and here these kind of small little dots are all mitochondria. And there's many other organelles that aren't shown in here. But it's important to know that you have this organization within these cells, right? Another thing these things have is, I don't know if sure you've heard of this before, but DNA is organized into chromosomes. DNA is compacted into these things called chromosomes, right? You've probably seen this before. Put this in a nucleus here. Chromosomes. All of these have linear chromosomes. linear chromosomes. So that's something to keep in mind. Another way we know that we're related with all other eukaryotic organisms. Again, we haven't really talked yet about the other side of this coin. I'm just going to put it in parentheses and ask that you save it in your pocket for later on, but prokaryotes, we will talk about those later. For now, we're talking about eukaryotes and how we know that we are related. Linear chromosomes are something that all eukaryotes share in common. We have our DNA compacted into these chromosomes in a linear fashion. It is not circular as prokaryotes' DNA is. Excuse me. Another factor, if we were to zoom in on this chromosome, and again, this is something I'm going to mention right now. You might want to write it down because it's something you can save for the future. But if you were to unwrap this DNA, you would have parts of it that were coded for a protein. You'd have parts that coded for a protein, but you would mostly have junk, stuff that gets cut out, stuff that gets, not the DNA itself, but the actual mRNA, that codes from that DNA. A lot of it gets cut out. These are called introns. Introns. The part that is coded is called an exon. So, eukaryotic organisms all share this in common, the fact that they have introns that get removed. This is not necessarily the same with prokaryotic organisms, but it's just interesting to note. I thought it was something I wanted to mention here, so that maybe when I come back to it later, you will remember that we use this kind of as a way to know that all eukaryotes are related, right? Because we have membrane-bound organelles, such as the nucleus, mitochondria, Golgi apparatus, all of these things. We have linear chromosomes. We share that in common. And if you were to break that chromosome down into the DNA form and watch that mRNA being transcribed from it, a lot of that gets removed. A lot of it is junk. And all eukaryotes share this junk in common, this process of having usable DNA and these introns that get removed. So I'm going to call it here for this video. I will see you in the next video. Thank you for listening.